Part of me wanted to close my eyes. I could feel Demi shaking uncontrollably next to me, her arm gripping onto me, seemingly holding on for dear life. Deep down, I know her holding on to me was futile. Holding on for dear life seemed almost comical to me. I sure as shit couldn't save myself from this beast, let alone save my partner.
What shall we do?
Demi asked with a shaky breath. Honestly, we wait for it to go to Joseph, and we run. I was blinded by the beam as Demi turned her flashlight towards me. The light seemed to burn my flesh in the darkness of the night.
You're joking, right?
She whispered angrily at me.
We can't just wait for him to be savaged and hope we get away.
We need to try something. I don't know what we could possibly do to this thing. It's a werewolf or something. I whispered back to her angrily. It seemed that my deep-rooted fear had turned to anger at the thought of not being able to run for my life. But deep down, I knew Demi was right. Part of me knew we were going to die anyway. And so, surely it was better to die trying to save Joseph than die like a coward. Also, if I managed to distract this spawn of hell, Demi might be able to get back to the house. Before we had time to react, the gleaming red eyes were looking down on the bloody mess that was Joseph. His scream had turned into the saddest and most pathetic whimper I had ever heard. Once again, my blood ran cold as the scream of the monster pierced the night sky, almost as if it was showing Joseph how to scream. Joseph's soaked clothes were made all the wetter by the drooling beast above him. It dripped blood and saliva on him. Looking down upon him as any apex predator would a defenseless creature it was ready to devour. The nightmare in front of us was not perturbed in the slightest by the beams trained on him by the flashlights. Demi and I both had our flashlights pointed directly at it, frozen in fear. One would have thought we were in a slasher film with the amount of blood spraying around us. Demi and I were drenched in the blood and bits of Elizabeth, but the trees keeping us boxed in were painted red with the life force of our friends. Adding to the red mess, the beast bent down and seized Joseph by the leg. Another scream echoed throughout the resting place of Elizabeth, as Joseph bellowed in pain as his bones were undoubtedly crushed by the repulsive jaws that had torn apart his fiancée. It pushed through the tree line, dragging my best friend with him like a dog does with a bone. Joseph had stopped moving and was either dead or had lost all the strength and drive to live. And I don't blame him. Our flashlights followed the creature as it moved, and we bore witness to Joseph's leg come clean off his body. As it dragged him into the abyss, the force it had used to torture Joseph by tearing his leg obviously proved to be too much, and the leg was being held on by nothing but a few tendons and sinew. Joseph's big frame, although dwarfed by the creature, weighed him down enough to separate his leg from his body. The creature seemed content to have mauled and maimed Joseph and trees around us, and continued its withdrawal, red eyes and daunting figure disappearing into the trees. The trees around us shook and cracked as the beast seemed to move in all directions around us. We stayed frozen, unsure if we should run or stay where we were, debating if the sound of us moving would bring the nightmare back to us. The scream we had heard it emit sounded again, and at this time it sounded as if it was quite a distance away. How on earth could something move that quickly? I could feel my heart almost stop beating completely as a groan came from the mangled mess ahead of us. Somehow, Joseph was alive. Impulse took over and I pulled Demi by the hand to him. Our flashlights bobbed as we made our way over the scattered flesh and puddles of blood. The silence surrounding us was deafening. Joseph looked nothing more than a heap of blood and shredded clothes. We cast light on his face and his eyelids fluttered open ever so slightly. Blood covered his face completely. There was not a patch of skin not soaked in red. He coughed weakly and blood trickled down his chin. I couldn't help but draw the comparison to how both the predator and the prey seemed to be drooling blood. His leg flowed like a fountain, and the smell of metal filled the air around us. Goodbye, pure, fresh air. Holy shit. I managed to get out.
We need to stop the bleeding,
Demi ordered, seemingly having snapped out of shock. I could barely move, and here she was, knowing exactly what to do in the face or muzzle of danger. Demi was crouched beside Joseph, boots soaking in the blood. I slipped my belt off my waist and settled down beside her. We need to get out of here. We don't know where that thing is, I told Demi.
We can't leave Joseph. He's still alive,
she responded. How the fuck are we going to carry him? I asked her in frustration. I never swore when speaking to Demi, and I guess fear brought out the worst in me.
Let's stop the bleeding, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
As we hooped the belt around the stub where his leg used to be, it made the most disgusting squishing sound. Blood poured profusely from the wound, and I thought our efforts were futile. Joseph groaned lightly as the belt tightened against his skin. There was nothing we could do about the gash in his chest, and I just hoped it would not cause him to bleed out as we devised a plan of action. Our hands looked as if we had been operating on someone with no gloves. In that moment of helping Joseph, Demi and I both seemed to have forgotten about the mess that had launched this atrocious attack on our group. With Joseph somewhat patched up, there was nothing left to do besides decide what we would do.
We can't be that far from the house,
Demi reasoned with me. That may be the case, but Joseph weighs like 100 kilos, I countered her argument with.
We have to try. Please, this is crazy. What kind of people would we be if we left him?
She asked. Well, we would most probably be survivors if we left him. So, alive? That's the kind of people we would be, I said with unintentional sarcasm.
Grab his arms. We can carry him together,
came her reply. He's going to slow us down, I said to Demi. We don't know where this creature is and when it will come back. We need to move as quickly as we can to get back to the house.
Go on then,
Demi screamed at me, obviously exasperated.
I'll drag him home myself.
I felt as though I could have cried in that moment. I wanted nothing more than to curl up into a ball on the ground and just cry. I had progressed well past fear and was experiencing completely new feelings. Without another word, I stepped behind the upper half of the one-legged man and began scooping the mess into my arms. Joseph's head nodded from side to side, as if he was vehemently agreeing with what we were doing. Demi made a concerted effort to be as gentle as she could, to avoid knocking the secured stump. The task was hard as it was. Trying to pick up a person seemingly the size of a fridge. Demi was clearly giving everything she had and was struggling beyond measure. The absurd amount of blood covering us all made the task almost impossible. Factoring in that we had to put the flashlights under our arms to provide us with some light as we would begin our hobbling journey through the perilous trees. We moved as best we could along the path, straining more than I thought I ever could, while simultaneously doing all we could to keep as quiet as we could. Absolute silence. I could hear nothing but the faint breath coming from Joseph and the pained grunts from Demi as she shuffled alongside me. I nearly dropped Joseph when I heard the scream. I have never seen a demon but I presume that's how a demon would scream, if one ever did. The sound was much closer to us than the last time. "It's back!" I hissed at Demi.
"We need to move faster,"
she said, and with an almost movie-like burst of strength, it started moving quicker than she had before. I matched her speed so as to not disrupt the rhythm we had in our movement, and had to resist the urge not to spin around and look into the trees for the haunting red eyes. I stifled my scream when I could hear branches snapping and the trees very close behind us parting to make way for the monster. As terrified as I was equally as thankful that the sounds were coming from the trees that were on my side of the path. If it spent as much time tearing me up as it did to the others, it would give Demi the chance to hopefully make it back to the house. My thoughts were racing, and a sense of dread and hopelessness washed over me. Why would we be safe in the house? This creature tore people apart effortlessly and ran dozens of miles in an instant. I had no doubt it would be able to get into the house. There was no time to think about that, though. If at least Demi could make it back, she could use the satellite phone we had seen in the living room to call for help. Hopefully they would get to her in time. We definitely couldn't rely on the neighbors. The odds of them hearing us were 0. The creature seemed to be taunting us. I had absolutely no doubt it was faster than us. But for some reason, it just about kept pace with us. The branches continued snapping behind me, but Demi seemed unbothered by it and kept moving as quickly as she could. Her bravery encouraged me, and I ignored the menace giving chase and plodded along as quickly as possible. Not too far ahead now, the lights left on in the house became visible. The hope I had lost returned at the sight of the lights. Maybe the woods had thickened to the point they were impenetrable, and the monster could not break through. Maybe it wouldn't be able to break down the thick door that led into the sanctuary that was a safe haven for the shredded man we now carried. If we could barricade ourselves in the bathroom, perhaps we would be okay. I knew Demi saw the lights, but her determination seemed to keep her silent, and she plowed along as she had done the whole time. "Once we get off the path and the house is near, I want you to run as fast as you can. I'll drag Joseph by myself."
"That will slow you down even more. We have to do it together,"
she said in between each heavy breath. "No," I said sternly. "Our only chance is if you get to the house and call for help." Just look on the refrigerator for emergency contact numbers.
I'm not leaving you behind,
she told me, even more sternly than I had. There's no point in us both dying. If it attacks us, I'll try and hold it off as best I can. You've always said you wanted to see my karate training. This is my chance to show you, I said jokingly, trying to make myself feel better about the suicide mission I was about to attempt.
We can fight it together,
she said shakily. We both know that won't work out. Please, just get help, I asked her, extreme desperation in my voice. Okay, came the hesitant reply. We scrambled off the trail. Within a stone's throw from the house, we were finally so close. It had seemed like we trekked hundreds of miles, all the while being pursued by a beast that was going to rip us to pieces and dine on our insides. I braced myself and waited for the muscular limb of the creature to swipe at me and relieve me of a good portion of my body. Nothing hit me. I can't hear it anymore. Where did it go? I asked Demi nervously.
I have no idea, but just keep moving.
We kept the pace and neared the house. Once again, my doubts about the safety of the house came flooding back. If we sit in the house, we'll be waiting for our death, I prompted.
So, what should we do?
Demi replied. Let's drive and get to the neighbors. We have no idea how long the authorities will take to get here. I'm sure in this kind of place, the residents will have guns, I told her. She didn't need to say anything for me to know. She agreed. She didn't need to say anything for me to know. She agreed with my suggestion. We finally reached the truck, and I had never felt so relieved in my life. Demi lowered the leg she was carrying and threw open the passenger door. I stuffed Joseph in with no concern about his missing leg and pushed Demi to get in. Running to the kitchen door we had entered upon arrival, I felt as if there was, without any uncertainty, that there was a God. The car keys were left right on the counter near the door. I picked them up and swiveled on my heels, heading back to the truck. It stood right where I had thought it was going to attack us. The splendor of the moon cast a brilliant beam down on it, seeming to illuminate nothing but the beast. I knew it was huge from the encounter in the woods, but now I could see the extent of its size. It stood upright, muscles bulging all over its body, as if it had dedicated its life to weightlifting. The claws that protruded from its hands hung menacingly at its side, the length of them making me think small knives had been stuck onto the hands. The glowing red eyes that had been an indicator of its presence situated above the beastly snout we had seen covered in blood. Ears perked up like a German shepherd, it stared at us, not moving. In what felt like slow motion, I sprung into the driver's seat and jammed the keys into the ignition. I reversed with the speed and precision of a professional stunt driver and launched the car into first gear. The gravel kicked up around the tires, slowing us down. The truck picked up traction and accelerated as well as it could. Demi and I sat in shocked silence, disbelieving we had managed to get to the car, least of all carrying the mammoth of a man slumped next to us. I veered to the side when I caught a glimpse of the red eyes bounding ever so close behind us. I knew it was too good to be true. The monster had given chase yet again, this time on the open road. The headlights illuminated the vast trees around us, and I wondered if driving into the thicket would do any good. Maybe I could slow down and try and run the beast over. It was catching up very quickly, the engine straining in third gear, engaging the fourth gear and picking up speed. The gap between us and the beast seemed to be increasing. It was fast as hell, but the glory of modern mechanics seemed to be bettering it. Out of what I presume must have been irritation, the demon's scream rang through my ears. I did not let up the speed, and I heard Demi begin to sob quietly as we climbed over a slight hill and we gazed upon the lights of a house not far from where we were. It's okay, babe. There's gotta be people there. We're going to make it. It can't keep up with the car. I reassured her. I checked the rear view mirror and no longer saw the red eyes that chased us unrelentingly. We've lost it. Look behind us. It's gone, I told Demi. I didn't have time to react when the flash of fur burst through the tree line. It collided with the front of the car with the force of a tank and sent us off course towards the trees. As my head connected to the steering wheel, again I heard the scream as I felt my eyes close. I did my best to keep them open, but the blood pouring from the split in my head assisted them with closing. Don't move, buddy. Just stay still, the light said to me. It felt as if there was an axe in my head. Why would heaven have pain? Maybe I had gone to hell. You guys are all right. We've got you. Another voice sounded from the brightness. Once again, I felt my eyes grow heavy, and the darkness began to consume me. Maybe the bright light was purgatory, and now it was time to see if I was destined for eternal life or eternal condemnation. I finally awoke, my head banging like a marching band had taken up residence inside. I turned slowly, groaning in pain. What happened? I asked the figure standing not far from where I seemed to be laying. It nearly got you. We saw your headlights and stepped outside. We don't get many visitors, so we thought it was strange. We rushed over as soon as we saw the lights head towards the trees. The voice said as it turned to me. My vision was blurry, and I could just make out the massive beard covering my savior's face. "Where's Demi?" I asked, doing my best to sit up. "Easy, fella," the beard said to me. "Your missus is fine. She's laying down in the other bed over there. We've done the best we can with the other guy. The ambulance should be here soon to take you guys to the hospital." "What the fuck was that thing? What did that to us? Where is it?" I asked him in a panic. "It's gone now. We know how to get it to stop what it's doing, but it only works for a little bit. Once it's gone, you gotta get away as soon as you can." "You know what it is?" I asked him. "Of course. We've been dealing with it for generations. We do our best to avoid it, and it doesn't come to us. As they say, prevention is better than cure." Thank you for helping us," I sobbed, letting my emotions flow freely. "We tried to talk to your buddy about it, but he always seemed to be busy. We never got the chance to warn him. If he had taken the time to hear us, he could have avoided this, unfortunately. We know its routine and how it functions," he informed me. "We normally head out for the year and leave the houses empty when we know it's going to be hunting," he continued. "How on earth could you possibly know when it's going to be active?" I asked. "Because it doesn't change. Every 10 years, it plagues these lands. My great-granddaddy saw it first, set traps, and was killed by it. Ever since then, the family has passed down what to do when it rears its ugly head. But for the most part, it's safer to take off and just leave it be." "So, what exactly is it?" I asked, knowing we had to leave this godforsaken place. No one knows exactly what it is, but we call it the Dog Man.